Welcome back to the deep dive. I spent a good chunk of yesterday evening just staring at the ceiling, really trying to process the stack of research we have for today.
I can imagine.
Because usually when we talk about biology or, medical science, it feels distant. It feels like something happening in a lab or in a textbook.
Right, it's abstract.
But today's topic, it starts with a title that feels less like a medical diagnosis and more like a psychological thriller from the 1950s or something.
It really does. The spider in the sky.
The spider in the sky. It's so evocative. It's a little ominous. And honestly, when I first saw that in the source pile, I assumed we were going to be talking about astronomy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe a nebula that looks like an arachnid or, I don't know, some obscure mythological constellation that sailors used to fear.
That would be a fun deep dive. But no, we're dealing with something much more intimate and, frankly, much more terrifying because of how close it is.
How close?
We aren't looking light years away. We are looking at a distance of about, 20 millimeters?
Wow.
We are looking inside the human eye.
And specifically, we're unpacking a phenomenon that creates the spider effect. The clinical term, and we'll get the jargon out of the way early, is a vitreous hemorrhage.
Right.
But the source material doesn't just give us the definition, it gives us a narrative. It gives us the story of a man named Tom.
And Tom's story is absolutely crucial. It's the anchor for this entire deep dive.
Why is that?
Because we have this tendency in science communication to abstract things. We talk about visual acuity or vascular integrity. But for Tom, this wasn't an abstraction. It was a Tuesday. It was a moment where his reality just broke.
That's the feeling. That's the feeling I want to chase today. That moment of the glitch, we're going to use Tom's experience, which is genuinely terrifying, to sort of reverse engineer the mechanics of how we see.
I like that. Reverse engineer it.
We're going to talk about the squishy bits of the eye. We're going to use a brilliant analogy involving a glass of water. And we're going to land on some safety advice that is legitimately life-saving.
And I don't use the term life-saving lightly, but in this case, it absolutely applies. If you understand what we're about to talk about today, you might save your vision, or you might prevent a catastrophic accident.
The stakes are that high.
The stakes are incredibly high.
So let's set the stage. Our protagonist is truck driver Tom. And I think the profession is such a key detail here.
Oh, for sure.
He isn't a librarian. He isn't a podcaster sitting in a nice, safe studio. He is a long-haul trucker.
And think about the cognitive load of that job. Driving an 18-wheeler is a visual athletic event.
Right.
You are constantly scanning mirrors, gauges, the road ahead, the cars in your blind spot. Your visual cortex is processing gigabytes of data every single second.
You can't afford a single mistake.
Exactly. You rely on your eyes not just to see beauty, but to survive and to keep everyone else on the road safe.
Okay, so he's cruising down the highway. The source says it's a sunny afternoon. Visibility is perfect. The sky is that crisp, perfect blue.
Ideal conditions.
And then the glitch starts. The source breaks this down into stages. And I really want to walk through them slowly because the progression is where the horror lies. Let's call this phase 1, the speck.
The speck. It starts so innocuous.
Tom is driving, and he sees a black speck at his peripheral vision, just a little dot. And what does he do? He reacts instinctively.
The way we all would.
He assumes it's a gnat. He actually takes a hand off the wheel to swat at the air in the cab.
I love that detail because it speaks volumes about how our brains work. We are hardwired, absolutely hardwired, to believe that visual input comes from the outside world.
Of course. That's where things are.
If I see a dark spot moving, my brain runs a probability calculation. Is it more likely that my eye has spontaneously generated a black hole or that there's a common housefly buzzing around?
It's Occam's razor.
The brain bets on the fly. It projects the problem outward.
So he swats. He thinks, get out of here, fly. But the fly doesn't leave. And this is the first moment of what I'd call biological horror. He realizes the fly isn't flying in the cab.
Oh, that chill that must have gone down his spine.
It's flying in his vision. He looks left, the speck goes left. He looks right, the speck goes right. It's perfectly mapped to his gaze.
That is a phenomenon called entopsis, seeing something within the eye itself. And that moment of realization creates a massive cognitive dissonance.
What do you mean by that?
It's the realization that the equipment you use to observe the world is faulty. It's like looking through a camera lens and realizing the crack isn't on the landscape. It's on the glass.
And you can't wipe it off.
Can't wipe it off. You're trapped with it.
If it stopped there, maybe he just keeps driving. I mean, we've all had floaters. I'm sure you've looked at a blue sky and seen those little transparent squiggles.
Muscae volatantes, the flying flies, those are normal. They're usually just microscopic clumps of collagen casting a shadow. They can be annoying, but they're static.
They don't change.
Right. They just kind of drift.
But this isn't static. This brings us to phase 2. The transformation. And the source text gets incredibly vivid here. It says the gnat dissolved into a stream of black ink.
Ink is such a specific and important word choice.
Why ink?
Well, think about the physics of ink. It's a liquid. It has viscosity. It flows. A gnat is a solid object. A floater is usually a solid clump. But ink swirls.
And the text describes it as swirling down across his eye.
Gravity.
Gravity inside his eye.
We often forget that our eyes are physical chambers, and they're subject to the laws of physics just like everything else. Tom is sitting upright in the driver's seat, so whatever has been released into his eye is heavier than the fluid around it.
So it sinks.
It sinks. It cascades. It's an active event.
Imagine that you're doing 65 miles per hour on the interstate, and suddenly it looks like someone cracked a fountain pen inside your eyeball.
It's horrifying.
You're seeing this black curtain just draping itself over the highway.
And the density changes too, right? It goes from a speck, which suggests something small and defined, to a stream. That implies volume.
It's more than a dot now.
This isn't just a particle anymore. It's a release of fluid. It's active. It's happening now.
And then, very quickly, the source says, within an hour, we hit phase 3, the obscuration.
This is the end game of that initial event.
The black stream spreads out. It diffuses. And the world changes color. The text says his vision became a reddish haze.
And we've moved from a shadow to a filter. This is just basic optics.
Explain that.
When the material, which we now know is blood, is concentrated in a stream, it blocks light entirely so it looks black, like ink.
Okay.
But as it mixes with the clear fluids of the eye, it thins out. It becomes translucent. Light can pass through it, but the hemoglobin in the blood absorbs the blue and green wavelengths, letting the red pass through.
So he is literally seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, but in the most terrifying way possible.
It's a complete nightmare scenario. Red is the color of danger. It's the color of alarms, of stop signs, of biological failure.
It's a primal signal.
To have your entire visual field suddenly tinted red triggers a primal panic response. You can't not panic.
And the source confirms this. It says Tom pulls over immediately, thank goodness for that, and he is terrified.
As he should be.
He thinks he's having a stroke. He thinks his brain is bleeding. He thinks he's gone permanently blind.
And honestly, sitting in that truck cab on the side of the road, he has every single reason to think that. He has no way of knowing what's happening mechanically. He just knows that one of his primary senses has been completely hijacked by a red fog.
So we've hooked the listener with the horror story. Now, I want to pivot. We need to play detective. We need to open up the hood, or in this case, the eyeball, and figure out what actually popped. What is the anatomy of this disaster?
To understand the disaster, you have to understand the environment first. And the source material talks about the vitreous.
The vitreous humor.
Right. And it describes it as a clear jelly.
I've always found that description interesting because I think most people imagine the eye as like a water balloon, just a bag of saline water.
That's a common misconception.
But jelly implies structure. It implies something more solid.
It's a very specific kind of structure. It's what we call a hydrogel. Think of it like a raw egg white or maybe clear hair gel, but even more optically perfect.
Optically perfect.
Has to be. It's 99% water, but that 1% is a scaffold of collagen fibers and hyaluronic acid, and that scaffold gives it a wobble. It's viscous.
And why do we need jelly? Why not just water? Or air, for that matter?
Structural integrity. The eye is a pressurized sphere. If it were filled with air, it would be incredibly fragile. A small knock could collapse it.
Okay.
If it were filled with water, it wouldn't maintain its shape as well against the constant pull of your eye muscles. The jelly pushes outward against the retina, the film at the back of the eye, keeping it flat and smooth. It's like wallpaper paste that holds the wallpaper firmly to the wall.
That's a great analogy. So the jelly isn't just a medium, it's a structural component.
It's both, a very important structural component.
Okay, so we have this globe of clear, perfect jelly. It's the medium through which light travels. Light hits the cornea, goes through the lens, travels through this big ball of jelly, and then lands on the retina.
Correct. And for that system to work, the jelly must be transparent. Absolutely perfectly transparent.
So where did the ink come from? The source identifies the culprit as weak new blood vessels,
Mhm.
and it links this directly to diabetes.
And this is the crucial why. This is the key. Tom's experience isn't just some random freak accident. It's the end result of a systemic disease process. We need to talk about diabetic retinopathy.
Okay, so walk us through the mechanics of that. How does high blood sugar translate to a spider in the eye?
It's a chain reaction. It starts with the sugar. Chronic high blood sugar is basically toxic to blood vessels.
All blood vessels.
All of them, but it's especially hard on the tiniest ones, the capillaries. And the retina is packed with them. The sugar damages their walls. Over time, these vessels get damaged and blocked.
So the retina, the part of the eye that actually sees, stops getting blood.
It stops getting oxygen. And the retina is one of the most energy-hungry tissues in the entire human body. It consumes oxygen voraciously. So when the blood supply is cut off, the retina panics. It starts suffocating.
And when the body panics, it tries to fix the problem. It's not passive.
Exactly. The retina sends out a chemical distress signal. It releases a protein called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor.
So it's a chemical cry for help.
It's basically a chemical scream that says, build me new pipes. I need oxygen now.
That sounds like a logical solution. Build new blood vessels to bypass the blockage? Seems smart.
It is logical, but the execution is flawed. The body rushes the construction job. This process, called neovascularization, creates new blood vessels, but they are terrible quality. The source calls them fragile.
I think you called them something else.
I call them unauthorized plumbing. They're shoddy, they don't have strong walls, they are brittle, and this is the key, they grow into the vitreous jelly where they absolutely do not belong.
Whoa, wait. The normal vessels are behind the jelly on the retina.
Yes, they're supposed to stay flat against the back wall, but these new ones, they grow wild, they grow forward into the gel.
So now you have these cheap, flimsy pipes growing into a moving, shifting jelly.
Precisely, and remember, the vitreous is a gel, it moves. When you look left and right, the gel sloshes around. It's not a solid block.
Right.
If those weak vessels get tangled up in the gel, the physical traction, the pulling force of the moving jelly can just rip them open.
That's the pop.
That's the pop. It's not an explosion from high blood pressure, not usually. It's a tear from traction.
Yeah.
The vessel wall just gives way.
And because it's a blood vessel, it's pressurized with blood, so the blood sprays out.
Into the clear jelly.
And that is the vitreous hemorrhage bleeding into the jelly.
Precisely. The spider is born.
This brings us to the most helpful part of the source material, I think. We've had the story, we had the anatomy, now we have the analogy. And honestly, this analogy is the only reason I fully grasped the visual progression Tom experienced.
It's a really good one.
The source calls it the glass of water.
It's a classic analogy for a reason. It simplifies the fluid dynamics beautifully.
So paint the picture for us, set it up.
Okay, imagine a tall, clear glass of water sitting on a table, nice and still. The water represents the vitreous humor, that clear jelly we just talked about.
Got it. Glass of water, eye jelly.
Now imagine you have a dropper full of red food coloring. That dropper represents the bleeding vessel that just popped.
Okay. And you squeeze one drop into the water.
Now, stop for a second. Right at that instant, when that drop hits the water, what does it look like? Does the water instantly turn pink?
No, it stays as a cohesive drop for a moment, a
Right.
little concentrated blob.
Exactly. It holds its surface tension for a brief moment. It looks like a little dark pearl or a tadpole or a spider.
Ah.
It is a distinct, defined object floating in the clear medium.
And because it's so concentrated, it's opaque. It would block light.
If you shined a flashlight through the glass at that exact moment, that drop would cast a sharp, dark shadow on the wall behind it.
And that shadow.
That shadow is what Tom saw as the gnat. The blood was still clumped together near the source of the bleed.
But you can't stop physics. Diffusion happens.
Brownian motion kicks in. The molecules of the dye start to jiggle and spread out into the water. The drop loses its shape. It starts to unfurl.
The source says, the color swirls and clouds the whole glass.
Think about watching dye spread in water. It creates these tendrils, these ribbons of color that twist and turn as they sink.
That's the stream.
That is exactly the stream of black ink that Tom saw. It's the transition phase between a solid drop and a full solution.
And finally, you leave the glass alone for 20 minutes. You come back. What do you see?
The dye is evenly distributed. The water is no longer clear with a spot in it. The water itself has become red.
The red haze.
And this explains perfectly why the vision is blurry. When the medium itself is tinted and cloudy, light scatters.
Right. It can't travel in a straight line anymore.
It's like driving through fog. The image doesn't form sharply on the retina because the light rays are getting bounced around by millions of red blood cells floating in the path.
Now, there is a very reassuring aspect to this analogy that the source points out. It discusses containment.
This is so critical for keeping panic at bay. So important.
The dye is inside the glass. It hasn't spilled onto the table.
Right. The eye hasn't exploded. The blood isn't leaking out of your eye socket onto your cheek. It is a contained event within the globe.
So it feels catastrophic.
It looks catastrophic, but structurally, the eye is still sealed. It's intact.
And that leads directly to the prognosis, because Tom, sitting in his truck, thinks his life as a driver is over. He's thinking, I'm blind. But the source says, the vision isn't gone forever.
This is the hope. And the analogy holds up here too.
It says the water, the vitreous, just needs to clear up.
Think about it. If you have a glass of red water and you have, say, a magical filter that can pull the dye out, what are you left with?
Clear water.
Clear water. The glass itself isn't scratched. The table behind it is still there. The view is just obscured.
So in the eye, the retina, the film, the wallpaper is usually still working perfectly.
Yes.
It's just waiting for the lights to come back on.
Exactly. The hardware is fine. The window is just dirty.
So how do we clean the window? Does the body have, like, a squeegee?
It actually does, in a way. The body has an amazing cleanup crew called phagocytes. These are cells that basically go around eating debris.
Like little Pac-Man.
Very much like little Pac-Man. Over time, weeks or months, it can be slow. They can actually eat the blood cells and clear the jelly. The blood also settles to the bottom of the eye, thanks to gravity, and gets reabsorbed by the body.
So if Tom just waits, his vision might just return on its own?
It might. It's a slow process, but often the body can handle a small hemorrhage on its own.
But what if it's a big hemorrhage? What if the glass is pitch black with dye?
Then we have modern medicine. There is a surgery called a vitrectomy. It sounds intense, but it's actually a routine procedure for retina specialists.
What do they do?
They go in with tiny microsurgical instruments, impossibly small, and they literally vacuum out the bloody jelly.
They suck the jelly out of your eye.
They remove the vitreous humor entirely and replace it with a clear saline solution or a gas bubble that the body eventually replaces with its own clear fluid.
So they're basically changing the oil.
They flush the radiator, and the patient wakes up, the patch comes off a day later, and boom, spider's gone. The haze is gone. The world is clear again.
That is just incredible. It really reframes the entire experience for me.
How so?
It takes this gothic horror story of spiders and ink and blood and turns it into a plumbing issue, a clogged pipe that needs flushing.
That's the power of understanding the mechanism. It turns terror into a treatable condition. However, and this is a big, big however, we cannot be too casual about this.
Right, we don't want the listener to hear this and think, oh, just a little eye bleed, I'll sleep it off and see what happens.
Absolutely not. The source material ends with a section on actionable takeaways, and this is where we need to get very serious. There is a specific warning sign mentioned that separates a nuisance from a medical emergency.
The pepper shaker sign.
A sudden shower of floaters.
And the description is so vivid, like someone shook a pepper shaker in your eye.
I want everyone to visualize that right now. We are not talking about one floater. We aren't talking about the occasional gnat you see on a bright day. We are talking about hundreds of tiny black dots appearing all at once. A swarm.
Why pepper? Why dots instead of the ink stream we talked about before?
The pepper often represents a spray of individual red blood cells, or, more ominously, pigment cells.
Pigment cells. From where?
From the layer behind the retina. It signifies a burst. It's not a slow ooze, it's a sudden release. And if you see a shower of black specks, it might mean that not only has a blood vessel popped, but the retina itself might have torn.
A retinal tear. We haven't touched on that yet. How is that connected to the hemorrhage?
Remember the traction, the jelly pulling on the weak vessels.
Yeah.
Sometimes the jelly doesn't just rip the vessel, it rips the retina itself. It pulls the wallpaper off the wall.
And if the wallpaper comes off?
That is a retinal detachment. And unlike a simple hemorrhage, a detachment is a race against time. It is a true ocular emergency.
Why?
If the retina peels off completely, the photoreceptors, the cells that see light, lose their blood supply and die. That vision loss can be permanent if not surgically reattached within days or even hours.
So the hemorrhage, the red haze, might just be the smoke, but the detachment is the fire.
Exactly. And you can't tell the difference on your own. You can't look in a mirror and see if your retina is detached. All you see is the haze or the pepper.
This is why the source is so blunt with its protocol. It says, this is an emergency.
No ambiguity. No wiggle room.
And the number one instruction is, do not drive.
Which brings us right back to Tom. He pulled over.
He did. He
Yeah.
did the right thing.
And he didn't just save himself in the medical issue. He saved himself and everyone around him from a car wreck. We need to explain why driving is impossible with a hemorrhage. It's not just that things are blurry.
Right, because you have another eye. You might think, can I just wink and drive with the good one?
Try catching a baseball with one eye closed.
You can't judge it.
You lose stereoscopic vision. You lose depth perception. You can't judge how far away the bumper of the car in front of you is. You can't tell how fast it's approaching.
I see.
Plus, the red haze massively reduces contrast sensitivity. You might not see a pedestrian in the shadows or a patch of ice on the road. Driving with a vitreous hemorrhage is like driving drunk. You are visually impaired, full stop.
So the protocol is clear. Pull over, call a ride, go to the ER or an ophthalmologist immediately.
Immediately. Don't wait for the weekend. Don't call on Monday to make an appointment. Go now.
Why the urgency?
The doctor needs to dilate your pupil and look all the way to the back to check for that tear. If they find a tear early, before it becomes a full detachment, they can just laser it shut. It's a simple in-office fix.
They can weld the wallpaper back to the wall?
A perfect way to put it. But if you wait and it detaches, you're looking at major surgery and a much more uncertain recovery.
I want to zoom out for a second and talk about the learner profile we mentioned at the start. We're talking to people who might not be medical experts, but who are curious about how their bodies work. And there is a huge preventative angle here that we can't ignore.
The diabetes connection.
Yes. The source explicitly links this to diabetes. And we know that millions and millions of people are pre-diabetic or living with diabetes. The story about Tom isn't just a scary campfire tale. It's a warning shot.
It absolutely is. Diabetic retinopathy is the leading cause of blindness in working-age adults. But here's the thing. It's not inevitable.
So how do we prevent the shoddy construction of those vessels in the first place?
Blood sugar control. It's that simple and that difficult. If you keep your blood sugar in range, through diet, exercise, medication, whatever it takes, the vessels in your retina stay healthy.
They don't get blocked.
They don't get blocked. The retina never starts suffocating and screaming for oxygen. The VEGF signal never gets sent out. The weak vessels never grow. The spider is never spun.
It's amazing how connected it all is. What you eat for lunch today could impact the structural integrity of the jelly in your eye 20 years from now?
It's one system. The eye isn't an isolated camera sitting on your face. It's an organ fed by the same blood that flows through your heart and your brain and your kidneys.
Oh, right.
A problem in one place is a sign of a problem everywhere.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started with a title that sounded like science fiction. We sat in the cab with a terrified truck driver. We swam through the molecular structure of the vitreous humor. We watched ink swirl in a glass of water. And we ended up with a lecture on road safety and diabetes management.
That's the beauty of the deep dive. You pull one thread, the spider in the sky, and you end up unraveling the entire tapestry of human biology.
I keep thinking about the fragility of it all. That's the thought that's really going to stick with me from this.
What do you mean by that?
We walk around with this default assumption that our vision is the truth. I look at a tree, I see a tree, I assume the tree looks like that. But Tom's story teaches us that our vision is a construction.
Yeah.
It relies on a clear medium, it relies on intact plumbing, and a single drop of biological fluid, just one drop of red dye, can rewrite our entire reality in a matter of seconds. It can turn a sunny day into a red nightmare.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? We are viewing the universe through a biological lens, and that lens is organic. It changes, it ages, it breaks.
And it creates spiders where there are none.
Exactly.
So here's my challenge to the listener today. As you go about your week, just pay a little attention to your vision. Don't be paranoid, but be aware.
Be mindful.
Look at the sky. Do you see the clear blue? Do you see a little floater drifting by? Acknowledge it. It's a reminder of the jelly inside your head.
A reminder of the machinery.
And if you ever see the pepper shaker,
Please, for the love of all that is holy, pull over.
pull over, call the doctor, save your sight.
And save the rest of us on the road with you.
That's the deep dive for today. Take care of your eyes, everyone. They're the only pair you get.
Stay safe.
See you next time.